everyone, my name is Claire Kaler, and today I'm going to introduce you to genetics. Now, most people have heard of genetics before and have a general understanding of how we get the traits that make us, us. But how does it work and why does it work? For example, take two parents. The mom has brown hair and the dad has brown hair, but their kid has blonde hair. What's happening here? So how do you explain this? First of all, we'll start with what a gene is. Genes are like sets of instructions that get passed from one generation to the next. They determine all of our traits, from height to hair color. For each gene, we get two copies, one from each of our parents. Although these genes are in charge of the same trait, they may code for different gene expressions, like blonde hair versus brown hair. Genes can either be dominant or recessive. When a dominant gene is present, it will mask the recessive one. In the scientific world, dominant genes are written as capital letters, and recessive genes are written in lowercase letters. These genes are stored in chromosomes, which humans have 23 pairs of. Remember how you have two copies of the same gene? If one of the genes that you inherited is dominant, you will show that trait. In order to show the recessive trait, you must have two of the recessive copies of the gene from your parents. Having two copies of either dominant or recessive genes is called homozygous. Having one dominant and one recessive gene is called heterozygous. The visible traits that you show are called your phenotype. Your phenotype is determined by the code in your genes, your genotype. All people that show a recessive phenotype must be homozygous, since it only shows up when there are no dominant genes present. Let's think back to our example. The two parents have brown hair, but their child is blonde. Brown hair is a dominant trait and blonde hair is recessive. In order for the parents to have a child that is blonde, the parents have to be heterozygous for brown hair. The child would have inherited the recessive copy of the gene from both parents, since blonde hair is recessive and therefore can only be seen in people when the brown hair trait is not there. To understand why, let's look at a tool scientists use in genetics very often. A Punnett square. On the top of the square, we put the genotype of the father, and on the side, we write the genotype of the mother. Next, we fill out the squares in the middle. This represents all of the possible combinations of genes that their child would inherit from them. We can see from this cross that 3/4 of their children would have brown hair, and 1/4 would be born with blonde hair. Our mystery has been solved. Now that you'll understand genes, genotypes, phenotypes, and Punnett squares a little bit better, go forth and do science. Thanks for listening, and I hope you learned something new.